Get into this Rife machine I just got. Actually, I got it in the mail, I guess yesterday or day before. And I've been experimenting with it and experimenting with the software. It's called the Spooky 2. And there's a reason why they call it Spooky. It actually uses another thing besides the standard pad type Rife machine, or if you're not familiar with that. Royal Rife was a person back in the 1930s, developed a Rife microscope, which is the strongest optical microscope, even to this date. The microscopes we use today are electron, but he developed a method, theoretically, supposedly, and I think it's a fact, it was observed to actually where you can use frequencies to kill microbes. But anyway, this one I really like for the price and for all the features. I was very surprised. Now, the term spooky comes from, I think it was Einstein coined that term spooky, called it spooky. It's called from quantum entanglement. And I'm not an engineer or a physician or a physicist. I'm just trying to understand this in a common sense way, and I'll portray it that way. But quantum entanglement means that you could do something to one area, and it happens across space to another area. So it's like weird, it's spooky. They even have some new Japanese microscopes coming out that are more powerful using quantum entanglement. I mean, quantum entanglement is real, but I'll explain to you what that means in this device a little bit later. But first, I want to get into some of the features on this device. First, it comes with plug-in and power plug, right? And it has two outputs, like they go up to 20 volts, and one's a TTL output up to 5 volts, and one's an external in. Now, normally you'd be using one output and the other output for the carrier wave. I was just using the one output, and it's plugged into your computer and programmed by your computer. Now, the beauty of this device is it's ridiculously low priced and accurate for what you're getting. You see, the fact that you're using your computer, and the computer I'm using is not that old. It's a Windows 8. I'd rather stick with Windows 7, but it's a Windows 8. It's about a year old. It's got 4 gigahertz of RAM, and it's, I don't know, it's okay. It seems to drive this no problem. But I liked about the program, John White did the program, this person, and you look up his name, John White, I don't know, Spooky or John White Rife, if you want to look up all his tutorials, because I'm not going to go over that, because he covers it very, very well. But the program is excellent. It's very easy to figure out, too, when you're looking in there. And you can use, like, you say, for instance, you're using a common frequency that's alleged, I'll put it this way, alleged to knock down or hinder or kill bad microbes. Say it's 727 is a common one. 465 is a common one against fungal issues. I think some of the ones that are very common, that are the ones that, hit a whole host of conditions, like 880, 787, 727, and 465, they're and 20 is another one. They're probably pretty damn legit. Even though the medical profession does not recognize this, but I also should state that do not ever rely on a supposed Rife machine to cure something without working with your doctor. It's good to actually, I think, experiment with this in conjunction and in addition to what you're doing with your doctor. So in other words, if you're doing herbs, you're doing special diet, you're trying to fight some kind of cancer, and also the other thing is, say for instance, Royal Rife, if I get back to this, Royal Rife supposedly cured cancer with using micro frequencies. But I also have to point out this, there's a lot of different cancers. And if you look at the consolidated frequency list, say for instance it is legit all the way. Say it is. Let's make that assumption. You got to know what kind of cancer you have. And you also have to get the frequency into the cancer, assuming the whole thing works. But if you don't even know what kind of cancer you have, you're not going to use the right frequency. Also, I'm going to get into a couple other common sense things, because you can look at John White's videos and he can explain this very, very well, how this works. But I liked it because I looked at it and I said to myself, Rife machines that have arbitrary waves, user-defined waves, and you can use programming to vary the wave automatically by 2% or 5% and change the amplitude. They're very expensive. This thing is $200, and the reason it's $200 is because it's going through a program through your computer that was, I think it was originally written in Chinese, if I'm not mistaken, and John White translated to English, so I can understand it, you know. It'd be pretty tough for me to figure out Chinese, man. Maybe I'd figure it out by just clicking the buttons, but he changed it into English, so that's cool. But the thing is, you know, that's one of the reasons Rife machines are so much, because you got proprietary hardware that's in the Rife machine that's doing the programming, where you could just use a regular laptop computer. I'm using a Windows 8 laptop computer for this. So a lot of the wave generation is coming from the program. You know, it's defining what the signal generator is going to do. And what I like about it, see, the theory is, say for instance you're using 727 as a frequency. Well, you can use like 2% up and down feathering, which supposedly would confuse the microbes more. And it's not, 727 is not like every microbe there is, but that's a pretty general one, and pretty common one a lot of people use because it does a lot of different things. Supposedly, okay, allegedly. But if you use the 2%, so in other words, a normal machine would just do the 727, and they might have a carrier wave with it to try to drive it deeper into the body. And they might have a pulsing wave. But the program that this comes with, it actually has the pulse. You could do the pulse. You could do the carrier wave. And you could do the base wave. Plus you could feather the base wave all types of different ways, where it's going up and down either by 2%, 5%. There's all different arbitrary waves you can do. The amplitude can be varied. You could be going from 8 volts to 12 volts, or, you know, by a 40% margin. I don't know if I'm losing people on here, but basically it's the frequency and the power. So you can be varying the frequency a little bit, besides it doing its square wave, but it's also going, you know, they normally use a square wave where it goes positive, negative, like a square, you know, that they call it a square wave. And the frequency that it's on can be varied automatically with the computer program, so it confuses the microbe, and supposedly that theoretically makes it more harmful to that microbe specifically. Then on top of it, you can also vary the output, and that supposedly even more confuses the microbe, and then you can use like 4 hertz pulsing. Now, just looking at this, and I was using it with a pad type device like this. This is something else that doesn't come with the unit, but more or less does. You'd only have to use a wire extension and make a couple cloth pads. And I put these around the body, the torso, with a back brace belt, and these were wet with saline solution. I don't like using the handheld things that Hulda Clark said to use, or the foot pads, because actually, you know, it's pretty much an agreed upon, you know, even conventional scientific fact or medical fact that most microbes are actually in the gut in the torso, where they come from. Most 90% of your immune system and 90% of the microbes, the harmful microbes, are actually in the gut, in the stomach, the intestines, and stuff like that. So if you're holding these handheld things, you're not really getting that area, or if you're using the foot pads, you're not really getting those area. You know, my little theory is, and actually it's not actually my theory, but it's another theory I picked up from somebody else that told me about this, down in Ecuador. I don't want to mention his name, but it does make a lot of sense, because Hulda Clark even admitted, you know, how are you getting the microbes in the gut area if you are holding these handheld cylinders? So these would go around the gut area and held in on the opposite side of the stomach, or, you know, front to back or side to side. And this would be wet with saline solution, so it conducts electricity, and you'd be using this very low voltage coming from this unit. Now, this unit, you don't need an amplifier because it goes all the way up to 20 volts. It defaults to 5 volts, and you could set it where maybe it's on 12, going from 8 to 12, you know, waving like up and down and using feathering, and it's pretty freaking outstanding without even getting into all the fancy stuff, just by even using one channel. It's way worth the money. Way worth the money, in my opinion. And I'm not selling this stuff. It is way worth the money. It's ridiculously good for what, you know, it's fantastic, in my opinion. I think it's fantastic. And it put like high quality. I hate to put this out like it's some kind of cure because I don't really know that. I'm not a medical profession, but the thing is, and even though I know doctors, I know people in my family that are in this stuff. I know other people that have run like clinics and they run the whole damn thing. But I'm not a medical professional, and I'm not going to speak as one, even though I'm kind of like interfaced with a lot of that stuff. But let me put it this way: if it could cut down the cost of medical treatment in the United States, wouldn't that be a great thing? The problem is if it cuts down the cost of medical treatment in the United States, it's also going to take it out of the pockets of the largest, biggest freaking industrial complex out there, which is, well, number 2 anyway, the pharmaceutical industry. The biggest one out there is the energy and oil industry. Number 2 is the pharmaceutical industry. If this works, even somewhat or just even a little bit, it could still take billions out of their pocket, and they don't like that. So, but let me put it this way: if you want to experiment with something without spending a lot of money, this thing is awesome. Now, again, I want to talk about, first off, this can drive something else called a plasma device, which you might have to be, a few feet away from, where it drives the signal into the body. And you typically use an argon bulb. I am not sure how that damn thing works. I am researching it. But I have something else coming on the way because I figured I'd order this first before I actually get this other thing. And it's very inexpensive. It's called Spooky Remote. And this is where I was talking about the quantum entanglement. This sounds a little bit too crazy for me to believe. All right? I can't believe it. But I'm going to experiment with it anyway. What it is a device where you take a cutoff of when you're fingernail clipping, and you put it in between. You put it in a piece of masking tape basically, and it sandwiches between 2 circuit boards, and it picks up your exact DNA. So what happens is it applies the signal to that fingernail clipping to your exact DNA, and you could be like really far away from the machine, allegedly even miles. I don't know if that's true, but maybe, I don't know. There's a reason they call it spooky, because it really sounds spooky. But there's a quantum entanglement in this type of theory is not actually hocus pocus. It's like I said, the Japanese have just developed a microscope, a more powerful microscope using quantum entanglement. But anyway, the theory behind this is that between these 2 circuit boards where the fingernail clipping is, it will actually code to my DNA, where I don't have to be attached to the machine by pads or close to a plasma device, where it could be working for me. Now, one interesting alleged frequency out there that I thought was cool, and I don't even know if this is legit, because I read pros and cons on this stuff left and right. Some people are saying it's bullshit. Some people are saying, yeah, it's true. Well, one is called DNA repair, and an alleged. I'm going to put it this way: alleged. Okay, and I like the idea behind DNA repair. DNA, if there's such a thing, that's almost like making you like brand new again, right? I think that's cool, right? If there's such a thing, the frequency for that is 528. Actually, the exact frequency for that is 527.9. So one of the things I'm going to experiment with when I get my little spooky add-on device, which is only, what was it? I think delivered it's like under $40. I mean, that's why I can't believe it's that good, because it's too cheap. It's too cheap. But the whole idea with these guys though is they're not trying to rip anybody off. They're actually offering products like at cost. They are. And, the software is free. So tell me. And I do understand the part about the function generators and the basic frequencies. I think are extremely useful in the fact that you can vary the frequencies in this excellent program that was rewritten by John White to into English makes this machine extremely powerful. So, the parts of it I understand make it beyond worthwhile for the money. Unbelievably a great deal, in my opinion. I know there's always going to be somebody that say it's BS, but hey, man, it's a free country. You can do what you want. I mean, like I said, if you're trying to cure something, you don't want to rely on this as your crutch. You might want to use this as an add-on with other things you're doing. And, maybe it'll give you that little extra edge. Or maybe it'll really work super good. I don't know. I think there's a lot of misinformation about Rife, and I think part of it comes from, if you looked at, and hopefully I got this research correct, you'll see a lot of things. Sometimes you'll see the Crane frequencies, John Crane. John Crane was a guy that worked with Royal Rife as a technician. Very intelligent man, but he did not understand, from my understanding from doing some research, he did not understand actually what Royal Rife was doing. And he sold, if I got this correct, he sold a lot of these simple square wave zappers basically as little Rife machines, and they did not really say they worked a little bit. He was selling them to people that were seriously ill, and even if they worked a little bit, it wasn't enough to freaking help them, and people died. And so that's why I say with any of this type of stuff, you don't want to rely on this as your only thing. You want to use the standard stuff, use some common sense with good diet. And if you want to experiment with this as an add-on, this thing is ridiculously low. I don't want to screw it up and say it's ridiculously low price because maybe it'll jack the price up. But it's a good deal, man. I think it's a super deal. I love it. I think it's fantastic. I got the, this is the 20 megahertz one with the shipping was under $200. Came from China. And I bought it from the good Chinese people. The good Chinese people, not the elite Chinese people. Remember that, okay? So, when people say I'm buying something from China, I'm not patriotic. But hey, if it's a good, smart, good people, you buy it from good people across the world. But anyway, thing is, I got the other thing coming with the spooky remote. I'm going to try that out with the DNA. I'm going to try that out. We're coding my DNA to my fingernail clipping, and supposedly it's going to go into my body through quantum entanglement, big buzzword out there, through by matching to my fingernails on my body. And I'm going to try 527.9 DNA repair. What the hell, right? What the hell? So, anyway, in the future, maybe I'll figure out how it works with a cat, so I'll cut their little claws, and I'll figure out how that works with that. Maybe it works with them, too. I don't know. And, if you see these cats around here 100 years from now, you know why. So, I'll just leave you with that thought. I don't know if this is going to work as super good as I would think, but I like experimenting with this stuff. Actually, my background, I know it's accounting finance, but before I switched to accounting finance, I was a math major, and I had the whole mathematics curriculum, 30 credits. I had all the major credits. I switched to accounting because I knew after college, what the hell are you going to do with this math stuff? Nothing, right? There was no computers basically back then. They had the IBM punch cards. I was 99 percentiles consistently on my SATs all the freaking time, especially in mathematics. And, even though when I got out of the Marine Corps, I didn't understand a damn thing about computers. It seems to be highly, highly mathematical. And I really gravitated very fast and got up to speed and went really way beyond. So I think these type of things piqued my curiosity because of the way my head is more geared to math. And that's one reason too. But I think it's an outstanding idea, and I think the people that are putting it out are very sincere and legit. But I can't tell you it's going to cure something. But if you want to experiment with a Rife machine, hey, this is the one to get. I think it's an outstanding idea. Let's just hope the FDA lets people experiment with things, because I'm going to say it's experiment with. The whole idea is, if somebody does stumble upon something that works very well, wouldn't that help, let's assume this maybe happens. Somebody stumbles upon something that helps very well, and, by users' feedback, they find out, wow, this really does work, and then the medical professionals verify it. And it comes out that, hey, there's some aspects to this that are very helpful. Well, wouldn't that cut down the health cost of healthcare, which is actually overburdening the nation right now? Wouldn't it? So let's hope they don't come down really hard on this type of stuff, because it could be a unique approach that works very well. And looking at the history of some of these devices, it's a hodgepodge of BS and real. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Like I said, with John Crane, he was selling dumbed down Rife devices that were not really the real McCoy, and that part of it caused a problem with the stigma on what Rife really was. Rife used something very complicated. They used carrier waves combined with a combination of fueling waves. It wasn't one simple square wave. It wasn't that simple. But my point is, on this device with the computer program that John White has rewritten into English, it's not just a simple square wave. And you're getting a hell of a lot for the money, in my opinion. So I just figured I'd put this out here, but you really want to look at John White's videos and the Spooky 2 Rife on YouTube, and see what he has to say. But I'm putting out some of my little angle here, common sense, and I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's fantastic. I don't know, and maybe it's because I have a head that's a little more mathematical, so maybe it piqued my interest more than the average person. I don't know. Maybe that's part of the reason. But I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome.